year, especially with the ITR-1 filing, things have been very smooth in terms of at least the ITR-1 having been pre-filled and online facility available. In the video that you will see in the next few minutes, we are going to talk about how you can fill out the ITR-1 in say under 15 minutes. We've also tried to address some of your common issues and queries and some of the common mistakes we've seen people make when they are either choosing the form or filling out the form. Okay, so first step to file your ITR, and we're going to talk about ITR-1 today, which is the most commonly used ITR-1 for residents in India. Go to your browser, go and type in incometaxindia.efiling.gov.in. You don't need to learn this whole address. Even if you go to your browser and type e-filing in India, you will be directed to this website. The first thing to do is to make sure that you log in to the portal. So you go to the right side, go to the registered user and type in portal login. After you go to the login, you will see 4 tabs: the user ID, password and a CAPTCHA code. The user ID is your PAN number. Let's type in the user ID. The password is the password that you had set for yourself in the past. So we're going to enter the CAPTCHA. Again, this is done to make sure that you're not a robo or a robo is not using this laptop. After you do so, press continue and press skip. And the reason for pressing skip is that it's just given your basic details. Now you get onto this screen and you now need to go into the tab e-file. Go to the tab income tax return. In this situation, let's assume someone was already trying to file and had already saved his form or her form in a draft stage. The purpose of this screen is to tell you that if you do not end up filing or are busy, there is a method to save it as draft and you will be able to see it when you go back into the portal. So go on to this tab which says to file a fresh income tax return, click here. Easy, your PAN number is in there. You need to select your assessment year. Please remember, assessment year and financial year is one and the same thing, except that for financial year 18-19, you have to choose assessment year 19-20. It means the same thing. ITR form number will be available as a drop down. ITR-1 is what you need to select. Very important, filing type, whether it's an original or a revised return, it's very important because the form may ask you for additional information if it's a revised return. Let's go on and select this. Submission mode is very, very important because the ITR-1 form gives you the option to either prepare and submit online or do it offline and then upload it into the required path to file it. The easiest way of doing so really is to say prepare and submit online. So we will choose this tab. Now, the beauty of the ITR-1 is that a lot of details are pre-filled. The details that are pre-filled are given on the screen. They are things like your PAN, your name, date of birth, address, Aadhaar, basic details of your salary which are coming from your Form 16 and employer filings, details of your TDS that are coming from your Form 26 AS. The form also asks you whether you want to use the same bank account number as in your last ITR. Be very careful of this because this bank account is where your refund will come in if you have a refund. So if you've closed the account or if you don't operate the account anymore, please do give in the right details. If you want to use the same bank account, you can press this tab, select account for refund credit. So we go ahead and press continue. There is acceptance that you need to give and press continue again. Now this takes us to basically the instructions of the form. These are the general instructions and you can go on to the next arrow. Now, very important, this form has 5 or 6 tabs. Part 1 is your general information. You can see here that the information is already pre-filled in, right from the PAN to the name to the Aadhaar number, because the PAN and the Aadhaar in this case are linked, to the address, in fact, if you look at this tab which says filed under section, it allows you to select whether it's 139.1, which is before the due date, 139.4 belated, which is between August end and March end, 139.5, which is revised, and also after condonation of delay. That's because in certain cases the income tax authorities may allow you to file a tax return even if there has been a delay under the law. So you need to choose 139.1 because I'm assuming that we're looking at a case where you haven't still filed your tax return and you're going to do so within the prescribed due date. We go to the next, we say next. You can start saving it as draft. Do remember to do so at this stage, otherwise you can do it in the next tab. Now this is a very important page, which is computation of income and tax. Your gross salary is coming from your Form 16. Value of perquisites should also come from your Form 16. Please do keep your Form 16 handy in case there are any perquisites there which are not given here. You can fill them in manually. It doesn't mean that you can't fill in things manually. The details on allowances are also coming in from the Form 16. If and as well as what kind of allowance it is. For example, here it says section 1013A, which is house rent allowance. You can give the description if you want to, but otherwise not necessary unless you've selected something else. This form is computed and it already computes the income under the head salaries, which is based on whatever your employer has given. Assuming it's all correct, we go to the second tab, which is B2, house property. For our session today, we'll look at a self-occupied property. Now, the rows which talk about gross rent or tax paid to the authorities are not there because, or they are blanked out because there is a zero. You don't have to compute a rent or assign a notional rent. But it does allow you to enter any mortgage interest that you've paid, because then you're allowed to set it off against other salary income. The mortgage interest is restricted to 2 lakh rupees. So let's assume we added 2 lakh rupees, which is allowed as per law. The form has said nothing. It has allowed you to take the entire benefit of the 2 lakhs. Let's assume I tried to put 2,50,000 again. Again, the form gave me an error, but also there is a red line which says that the maximum loss can be set off, that is 2 lakh rupees. But if you want to carry forward any loss, then you need to use another form called ITR-2, because if I wanted to carry forward some loss, which is between 250 and 250,000 could have been carried forward, but then I need to use a different form or an ITR-2. Now, a loss under house property is computed and is restricted to 200,000, which is allowed as per law. We then move on to income from other sources. Income from other sources is basically any interest income, any dividend, any agricultural income, etc. Again, the form is very intelligent and it's given you lots of drop downs, which is your commonly used one: interest from savings, deposits. They're asking for deposits and FDs, etc. separately because there are certain benefits that may be available in terms of deductions depending on your status. Any income tax refund that you've got in the prior years is also your income from other sources, including things like family pension. There is a tab for others in case you have any other income. Let me assume I have a savings bank interest of 5,000 rupees. I must add it here. And with this, my gross total income is computed. Then I go to the part C, which is deductions. A lot of people know that Section 80C talks about deductions such as PPF, life insurance, contribution to Provident Fund. In this case, you've seen that certain deductions are already added in. They are added in because you've given this data to your employer, and therefore all of those deductions are added in. But the system calculated tab has restricted the deductions to 150,000 rupees because that is what is allowed as per law. So if we go to health insurance premium, where I say self and family including parents, and I've entered 70,000 rupees, it has restricted the deduction to 50,000 rupees. Similarly, we go on to all other deductions. If you have any deductions for interest taken on a residential property, ATE, which is interest on loan. For donations, you cannot enter the amounts here. You will have to go into a separate schedule, which is ATG. You can just press it here and the tab will open. Very important to note that for deductions, there are two types of deductions. One is which are eligible for 100% deduction, and one which are eligible for 50. There are different mechanisms of calculating them. Don't worry if you don't know which deduction is eligible for what. Your receipt will typically, your ATG receipt, which you get from the person you've given the donation to, will typically mention this, but otherwise you can also enter these details and the deduction qualifying limits will be calculated. We have come to the end of this section, where assuming that we've added all our deductions, our total income has been calculated. A mistake a lot of people make is that they don't add the exempt income income because they think it's not really going to impact the taxes. But please add your exempt income, which could be in the nature of agricultural income, which could be in the nature of superannuation, etc. received, or simply 1034, which is dividend received. Now, the computation of tax payable, etc. is all done automatically by this form. I would suggest that at this stage you can save it as draft to make sure that you don't lose the work that you've done, and then move on to the next tab, which is the tax details. If you go on to the tab tax details, again pre-filled, the tab already has your the tax deduction account of the employer. It has the name of the deductor, which is the employer, the tax that has been deducted, and any other taxes that have been deducted on your account. If you feel there is anything in the 26AS which is not filtered in here, please do so manually. But typically all the details will be filled in, because at least in the ITR-1 it is pre-filled and it is linked to your Form 26AS. You then go to the tab taxes paid and verification. The reason is, if you have paid any taxes in addition to this, it will come into this form. It could be in the form of advance taxes, which are the 4 quarterly installments you fill. Very, very important, please look at the bank account details in part E. The name of the bank is not pre-filled in, so you need to add the name of the bank. I'm adding the name for your reference. When you go down, it will also ask you how you are making this return. So it says, I further declare that I'm making this return in my capacity as either self or representative. Assuming you're doing it as self, please add that tab. Please put in the place New Delhi or wherever you are filing from, so that it's complete. Very important, before you move on to the verification stage or to the submission stage, the return form has to be e-verified or verified in paper. A return form which is not verified is not a valid return. There are 3 options given: either you e-verify through your Aadhaar, etc., or you can e-verify it later after a few days, or you can submit a hard copy to the Central Processing Centre in Bengaluru. It's easiest to e-verify the return, and therefore you may select this tab and say, I would like to e-verify now or later. Now is always better, so you don't forget later. And after that, you can press the button preview and submit, because this button then allows you to see if there are any mistakes in your tax return form. You then go back and press preview and submit. The form says you're ready to submit, all your details are valid, and simply by ticking OK, you are good to go and your tax return is filed. Remember, the due date has been extended to 31st of August 2019, but go ahead and file as soon as you can. Filing after 31st August 2019 does mean that there could be certain benefits you lose out on, for example, carry forward of some losses, and there are financial penalties as well. So do this quick. I hope it's made easy after this video. Thank you.